Good afternoon, everyone. I believe it's afternoon for most everybody that's watching this. However, if you're watching it later, good morning, good evening. I'm Dave Alton. I am the Chief Technology Officer here at Strategic Information Resources, better known as SIR Inc., to our clients and our friends. And today we're going to be talking about securing your phone, secure your life, and protecting your phone from digital threats. This is a topic that should be on everyone's mind because we all carry these very powerful phones in our pocket that are basically computers, and we want to make sure that we keep them safe and protected. We're going to let everybody get into the meeting. We'll probably wait about 3 or 4 minutes, and then once everyone's in, we'll go ahead and kick things off. So I will mute myself and turn my camera off, and then I'll come back on as soon as we're ready. Looking forward to having everybody on this webinar. Okay, it looks like everybody has joined us. Again, welcome. I am Dave Alton. I'm the Chief Technology Officer here at Strategic Information Resources, better known as SIR Inc. And today we're going to talk about securing your phone, secure your life, and how to protect your phone from digital threats. A little bit about who we are. We are solutionists that make your tech work. We keep your people and your profits protected and secured. And we have a team of 18 people based out of the Los Angeles area, and we support over 150 clients. Communication is kind of the foundation of everything that we do, and we try really hard to make your tech work at all times. But when it doesn't, you can call us. So the agenda today is we're going to walk away with a plan on how to protect your mobile phone and build best security practices. Really for anything, but this is really going to focus on your phone. Why mobile security matters, I think that will become evident if it's not already. Overview of some of the 10 best security practices around your phone. Creating kind of a security roadmap, and then some take-home resources that you guys can use in the future to protect your device. So why does mobile security matter? So mobile devices contain some of our most sensitive personal and business data. Like I said at the beginning of this, it's like a computer that you carry in your pocket. They've gotten more and more memory. They're larger than some of the computers that were in the 2000s and are faster and better. And surprisingly, we keep them on us at all times for the most part. 71% of fraudulent transactions occurred from a mobile platform. So what does that mean? We look at our email, we check stocks, we look at all kinds of stuff. And as that stuff comes in, right, as it hits our phone, we look at it. Well, it's a smaller device, typically. It's harder to see. Sometimes it doesn't read out quite the same way as other, large screen type devices do. And it's easy to miss. It's easier to miss stuff. And so what we often find happening is I'm moving quick and I'm like, oh, hey, I need to take care of that email. And I'm clicking on that link through my mobile device. What I don't realize is that mobile device is now, has become a vector of attack. And that link that you clicked on because you couldn't really see it or, use some of your normal practices for checking a link, you've now, exposed your data, your phone, your passwords, all the content that is contained on that device to a potential hacker. So last year, the average cost of a data breach reached about $4.8 million. It's looking like that number is going to continue to go higher this year. And it's a lot of it is easy to avoid. If we just slow down and we really check things out, it's very likely, very possible that we can, keep the bad guys out by just paying attention, right? We've seen remote work increase dramatically, and that raises our digital exposure, right? As we looked at as we look at email, as we look at documents and things like that that are on our devices, all of that remote work, because I can do work anywhere from that device, starts to kind of open up some gaps in security practices and policies and procedures, and just, like I said, sometimes moving too quickly. Most security incidents stem from simple, preventable vulnerabilities. And what do I mean by that? So vulnerabilities are things that are in software, things of how we work, policies and procedures that we may follow, that don't exactly follow the best practices. And that sometimes is due to convenience, sometimes it's due to, like I said, policy, sometimes it's a piece of software that's broken, or it has some kind of exposure that isn't readily available when you start using that piece of software. But they all kind of start with these simple little things that are often preventable. And the one of my favorite stories to tell is, not that it's a good story, but that a user will get a message from what looks like HR on their device. They're out and about, and they're running an errand, and they realize, oh my gosh, I got to respond to this. And so they treat it with some urgency. They click the link, they put in their username and password, and voila, the bad guy now has access to your credentials and your account because you gave it to them. And it's super, super simple to kind of prevent that. And one of the things that we talk about is just slowing down, right? Just taking a beat. Hey, do I need to respond to this right now? Can I wait till I get back to my computer, or I can look at it more closely and examine the link and make sure that it's a good link and things like that? Those are all things that we have a tendency not to do when we're rushing, right? So we're going to talk about some of the, security things that we can do to help protect. So this is kind of the laundry list, and we're going to go through all of these. So keeping your device updated, perform, digital cleanups, use strong authentication, be cautious with public Wi-Fi. We're going to talk a lot about that. Manage your app permissions. A lot of people give permissions to apps that it doesn't really need, or, you really shouldn't. Making sure your old devices are disposed of properly. We've frequently run across situations where an old device comes into our possession for an e-waste, and we power it on, make sure that it's clean, and we're like, oh my gosh, all the user data is still on here, right? Documenting your digital assets. So do you know where all your digital assets exist, right? Do you know where your Kindle is? Do you know where your iPad is? Did you loan one to your kid to play a video game and then never got it back? Making sure that you know where those things are so that you can make sure they're protected and updated and all that fun stuff is really, really critical. Turning on device security features is really, really important. Recognizing how to avoid scams, and then develop a security mindset. So we're going to go through all of this. And if you have questions as we're going through this, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. So let's talk a little bit about keeping your device updated. So it's probably best, if you're not doing this already, just turn on automatic updates for either your Android or Apple device. It's oftentimes we find devices that are wildly out of date. They've had security vulnerabilities for years, and it makes the bad guy's job so much easier if you're not paying attention to just regular updates. So let that just automatically update. Apps are another vector for bad guys. So first, make sure you're using an app from an app store. A lot of times people kind of, oh, this looks cool, and they go download something on the internet and they side load it, and they get it on there, and they don't realize that they've exposed their entire world to potentially a bad actor on using that app. So make sure you're using apps, but also update them, right? Apps also can have vulnerabilities and backdoors and things that are found after they're installed. So making sure they stay up to date. And whether that's something you do manually, personally, I like to do it manually because I like to keep an eye on things a little more closely. But you can also set most of that to just update automatically. So if you're not, into finding out exactly what the new features are, or why it's doing certain things, or new app permissions and stuff like that, just turn that on automatic. It will at least get rid of the easy stuff that might cause a problem later on down the road. Get rid of those old apps That's stuff that you never use. You installed because you went to some event and they needed an app and you put it on because you thought it was fun, or maybe you went to a museum and they had like a location mapping tool. Like if you don't need those apps anymore, get rid of them. The one that I get all the time is conferencing apps. So I go a fair amount of conferences throughout the year, and every single time it seems like I have to download a new one of those. When that conference is over and you've taken care of all the stuff you need to take care of, just get rid of that app. You don't need to have that app on your device anymore, right? And this gets a little bit into performing digital cleanup, right? Delete those unused applications, clear any cache data, right? A lot of times our caches fill up with data that we don't really need anymore. Clear that out every once in a while, and then review any stored documents and downloads. And this one's really important. So a lot of times we're moving quick and we're like, oh, I need to read that. And so you click read, and what you don't realize is it's not browsing that through the web necessarily. It's actually downloading a copy of that document to your device. So, most of those types of documents are pretty innocuous. We don't really care about them. It's not a big deal. But occasionally, you downloaded your health information, or somebody sent you a report about some sensitive data. That really shouldn't stay on the device, because again, it's really, really easy for that device to fall into the wrong hands, and then they would have access to that information. So just, if, after you've read it, you're sure you don't need it anymore, just get rid of that and make sure that it's not something that you keep on the device. And then outdated software is really the number one entry point for 63% of mobile attacks. So keeping on top of this is really important. So access protection. So be cautious with public Wi-Fi. So I'm going to harp on this a little bit of a soapbox. Very sorry about that. But public Wi-Fi is one of the most dangerous things to connect your device to. And that's because it's public, I can do all kinds of stuff on it that really can't be monitored in any real way from a public Wi-Fi. So bad guys often will set up a shop inside of airports, train stations, common areas where they can put a Wi-Fi signal or an SSID, or they can pop on the public Wi-Fi and then do things like scan the traffic and watch for, packets of data that traverse the network that, oh, okay, cool. Now I know that username and password. Now, all of that is normally pretty well protected when you connect to public Wi-Fi, but there are certain instances, certain websites, certain activities that we do that put us into a less secure mode. And that's when things start to become exposed and vulnerable. So it's best just to not use public Wi-Fi, but if you have to, make sure you have a VPN on. It's really, really important to encrypt that data as it's traversing that public network. Try not to look at sensitive information from public Wi-Fi. So if you're on a public Wi-Fi and you need to get on your work computer and do some work on Office 365, maybe that isn't the best time to do it. Or, I got to get on and approve this thing. Connect to your VPN first, right? Make sure that you're on there. The other way to do it is, most of us have unlimited data plans. It's not all that hard, and normally it doesn't take up too much of your data plan to just use the cell network. That is a private network. It isn't something that somebody can sniff or snoop on nearly as easily as they can with public Wi-Fi. So if you're going to be doing sensitive activities, consider using a VPN or making sure that you're on on your cellular network. Strong authentication. Create complex, unique passwords. So we talk about this in all the realms of security. Every single account, regardless of its type, should have its own unique password. And that password should be between 12 and 16 characters and be complex. And complex has to have an uppercase character, a lowercase, a number, and a special character. And there should be very little repeating of any of those items. And in most cases should be random. So What does random mean? It means you use a password generator to come up with that password and then store that password in a password protected environment. That is a much cleaner, much safer way to transact on the web, because then if that account is compromised, or the bad guy gets that information, well, then it's only exposing that one account. It's not exposing every place that you potentially might have, put that password into another account. Biometric security has gotten very good. Fingerprint ID is pretty much rock solid. Very few devices now have any kind of real problems with that. Facial recognition has gotten a ton better. There are still instances where I have seen facial recognition misrecognize and allow someone in that they shouldn't have. It's gotten much less, but in the early days of facial recognition, brothers and sisters oftentimes could use each other's faces to unlock phones. Biometrics doesn't necessarily, if you've watched any espionage movie or spy film in the last 5 years, pretty much all of them, hey, let me hold your phone up to my face while you're passed out, or I'm gonna grab your finger and put it on the reader while you're sleeping, right? So that I can get into your phone. Look, those are less common things that can happen, but it is something that can be done. So if you're really in a highly sensitive situation, or you carry sensitive data, maybe a PIN or some kind of pattern code is a better choice for you. Two-factor authentication should be turned on your phone as well, right? Make sure that all those accounts that you sign into have two-factor on. And then we see 81% of data breaches being caused by a weak or reused password. The database of known password username combinations is in the billions at this point. And so it's very likely your data at some point has been exposed. So one, check and make sure. And then two, make sure that you're using that complex, unique password, because then if something is compromised, I'm only having to deal with one account versus all my accounts. So data management, manage your app permissions. We talked a little bit about this, but you really should review permissions for all your installed apps. Do they need access to your location while in a background mode, right? Meaning it's always on. Do they need access to your phone? Do they need access to the camera? Do they need access to the file system? A lot of applications ask for all that because it just makes it easier for the app to interface with you and give you all this really cool, neat stuff. But what ends up happening is that if you let everybody in and say, yeah, everybody can do everything, you really start to compromise your security. So kind of keep an eye on that. Really restrict any apps to what's necessary, right? Don't necessarily provide them access to the camera if they don't need it, or if you're not going to use the app in that way, right? Be cautious with apps that ask for every permission. One, that's really bad coding practice. Normally, you're not supposed to, ask for every permission just to make your job of coding the application easier. You're really only supposed to ask for permissions that are required to utilize your application as a coder. But some people are lazy, or they're not familiar with the security configuration or how it works, and so they'll oftentimes, hey, we'll just ask for it all, and we'll tune it back later. That tuning back later often doesn't happen, and now you've exposed a lot more data than you absolutely have to. The average app collects data from 10 different permission categories. So those categories are things like your contacts, your camera, your biometric data, your file system. The email apps have a lot of access to location data. So there's a whole slew of data that you're delivering to these applications that you may not need, right? Health and fitness data that may be exposed through like a Fitbit application or something along those lines. The other thing that we want you to do is properly dispose of your old device. Listen, once that device is done, don't hang on to it. Don't, let it sit around. properly e-waste it. But before you do, right, back up important data before you dispose of it. Perform a factory reset. That'll clear all your data off, and then remove any SIM or external storage cards that you may have attached to it, right? This is just good practice for making sure that the device gets, recycled in the appropriate way, and your data isn't allowed to be seen by those recyclers. Security infrastructure. So enable device security features. Set up an automatic screen lock. 30 seconds or less is really kind of the preferred number. Apple and Android both now have certain applications. Like if your son is playing video games and you don't want to put in the code every single time, you can lock it so that that application is the only application on screen. To get out of that application, you have to use a PIN, and the screen doesn't lock necessarily as quickly as it would if it were you operating on it day in, day out. So even if you're in that situation where you're letting a kid borrow it or someone else borrow your phone, make sure that you're locking it appropriately after a certain amount of non-use. Configure remote find, lock, and wipe capabilities. This is like stolen device or find my phone. Is I think what Apple calls it. And really and truly, these need to be turned on for two reasons. One, they're small devices. They can fall out of pockets. It's really, really easy sometimes to not even know they're missing because they're lightweight and tiny. And you don't want the bad guy having access to that. So going in, having those features turned on beforehand, because you typically cannot turn them on after it's been stolen. You have to turn them on before it's been stolen or lost. And then you are able to remotely wipe that device and reset it and what we call brick it so that nobody else can really use that device in the future. And then pretty much all of the Android and Apple operating systems now, probably within the last 3 years, all turn device storage encryption on as a default. So I don't know that that's something you could do or you could do today where you could turn that on or could turn that off or start your phone without it. But if you have an older device, maybe you have an iPhone 11 or 12, encryption might not have been enabled. So make sure that you do turn that encryption on, right? We talked about this in the beginning, documenting your digital assets, right? Create an inventory of your devices and accounts. It's when you lose that device, right? You think, it's all on my phone. It's not a big deal. But when you lose that device, all those accounts, all that stuff that was on your phone and readily available is now no longer readily available. So make sure you have a good document of all of the information that is contained on your phone, the accounts that you sign into with your phone, your 2FA provider. Make sure all of that is retained somewhere other than just your device, because if you lose your device, you're not able to get to it, it's going to be, more difficult to kind of get you back into your digital life, right? Document the recovery procedures. We take this to heart all the time. We want to build that backup and disaster recovery plan before the disaster, right? You don't want to do that in the middle of a disaster. You kind of want to have all that figured out. So make sure you know what that is. Make sure you have figured those procedures out, and the phone calls you need to make and the people you need to talk to if your digital asset is either compromised or stolen. Educate your team about this. Make sure that if they're using corporate data on their personal devices, that, hey, look, there's some additional restrictions that come along with having access to this. We can wipe your device remotely. We can do things like that. If you lose your device, you have to report it within 24 hours. There are things that you want your team to use and know before that, something bad happens, right? So this stat is a terrible one, and I always think this number is going to be lower, but it continues to be high. 60% of companies struggle to recover quickly after security incidents due to insufficient documentation. So, I tell my son this, I tell our clients this, document as you go, right? As something comes up, if something changes, if you've got a new device, you've got a new piece of equipment, start writing that stuff down, put it in a spreadsheet. Make sure that you're paying attention to what it is so that we can get through and have that information readily available in the event we have some kind of situation. Threat awareness, right? Recognize and avoid scams. Uh, Look, this is the age of AI and of people sounding like people they're not. Um, Fishers, not the people that go out fishing for fish, but the people that scam you and try and get you to click on stuff have gotten very, very sophisticated at creating urgency and situations that feel like, I should probably really do something about this, right? Right now, the one that's big is toll roads. I live in an area that doesn't have a ton of toll roads, so whenever I get those, I can kind of like, that's not me. I didn't travel on any toll roads. But those of you that might live in a big city that do have, frequent toll roads, getting one of those notices, they can be really super scary. Like I've gotten a few where I go, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I was on a toll road. I wasn't. But the scammers are trying to get you to think like that. Oh, I wasn't on a toll road. Let me click this link. And they're like, hey, yeah, you owe us, $6. And then you provide some ACH information. Next thing you know, they're wiping bank accounts out, right? So it's really, really important to kind of stay ahead of those types of messages, right? Smishing is what this is typically called. So SMS phishing. Don't trust caller ID for verification. That is a easily spoofed kind of verification system. People can go on, put their own name and change stuff around on caller IDs. Is really not a big deal. Lots of even teenagers that are trying to trick their friends and stuff like that can do things like that. So don't trust caller ID. Very often those are going to be bogus. And then make sure when you do have something that you're like, this seems weird, verify that through a known good channel. We talk a lot about this in the finance realm where you get an email or you get something, a text message from your phone that says, hey, we've changed bank account information, or this invoice is due. Please contact us at this link. And you go to that link and they're like, oh, yeah. You know what? We changed bank information, or let us give you our new bank information. And really what they're doing is that they're getting in the middle of kind of an email chain or a client relationship that allows them to seem like, oh, well, this is the person I always talk to. We tell everyone, look, if there's any kind of banking, credit card, social security number, if any of those kinds of things are being asked for or are needed for some kind of transaction, just stop, say, hey, let me call you back. Pick up, look at the back of your credit card or call the contact that you would typically call for stuff like this, and use the known good number for them and have a conversation and just say, hey, did you send me this? Is this something you would send me? Oftentimes you'll find that it's some kind of scam or phishing attempt to either separate you from money or allow access into your systems. Develop a security mindset. So we kind of have been talking about this throughout the presentation today, right? Staying informed about emerging threats, conducting regular security audits, creating routine security habits. All of these things that we've been talking about are routine security habits, right? It's really just about paying attention to what's going on in the world with, attacks, scams, and threats. And once you do start paying attention, it gets harder and harder for the bad guys to really kind of maneuver around you or trick you or use some kind of social engineering tactic to get in the middle of or to attack your digital world on your mobile device, right? 95% of security breaches are caused by some kind of human error. Whoops, I didn't mean to click that link. I didn't mean to go to that place. All of those things are typically avoidable. And it's so much easier to, if you do click on that thing that you're like, ooh, I don't know if I should have clicked on that. Like, you should be reaching out right away. I did this thing. I don't know what I did. Change your password. Make sure that account is locked down and nobody else is attacking it or looking at it. Make sure that you've got all the right, phone numbers to call and people that you need to talk to so that that is something that can be easily managed going forward. So just make sure that you're having that mindset to be very, very familiar with how can I expose my data and what do I do if I accidentally do that. So one of the ways that we talk about this with clients is creating your mobile security roadmap. So start with an assessment, inventory all those devices, and write down all your current practices, right? Identify highest risk areas specific to your organization. Hey, maybe you have some BYOD devices, right? Where your where your employees utilize their own device to access your data, right? Make sure that you understand how are they interfacing with it? What protections do we have in place? Do we have a wipe policy? Is there a usage policy in place that allows you to quickly, make that device inaccessible, inoperable as regards to your networks? I can tell you that BYOD devices, that's a challenge, right? It's something that's very, very difficult to do, to make sure that I'm only deleting the data that's associated with the company and not some kind of personal data. But make sure your employees are aware of whatever the policies are. We recommend most times to have users have their own corporate device. It's not always feasible. Especially with the price of phones these days, it's less likely and even more expensive than it used to be. So we get the challenge of it, but at the same time, if you're working in a sensitive area, if you have a sensitive kind of data set, then it's probably a best practice to make sure that the end user or the team member, your staff member, has a device that you're fully in control of. I can wipe that device, I can kill everything off, and I know I'm not going to affect that end user's or that person's private information. Determine quick wins versus long-term improvements. So we see this a lot, low-hanging fruit. Go attack those things that are pretty easily done, right? Turn 2FA on for everything. Make sure that you've got some kind of spam protection in place. Make sure you're doing security awareness training. Do the simple stuff first, right? Get all of that out of the way, because a lot of times that simple stuff is the things that you need to protect 80% of your workforce, 80% of your company, and keep things from leaking out or being used improperly or being attacked, right? So it's not to say that you don't have to do or shouldn't do anything long term. You absolutely should, but if you can get those quick wins in, you can get your security posture up much, much more quickly than like kind of trying to boil the ocean, do it all at once. Oftentimes when we do that, we end up waiting on things and we don't have all the time. So be incremental, right? One step at a time. Hey, I'm gonna do this thing, and then I'm gonna do this thing, and then that's gonna build on this other thing, right? Just walk through the process. You don't have to get through this all in one day, but 1%, a little tiny bit each day makes a big difference. So how do you implement some of this? Begin with that high impact, low effort improvement, right? Turning on 2FA is not a big deal. Making sure that all your devices have biometric locks on them. Making sure your screen lock is down to 30 seconds, right? Those are all relatively easy. They're not too difficult to implement, and users are generally okay with it, right? Develop clear documentation and training. Make sure your staff knows what they're doing, knows how to use it, that they're clear on, hey, I really shouldn't be using this for my kids ball game scorekeeping app, right? Make sure that they're clear on, hey, I'm really supposed to use this for work. I'm not really allowed to use it outside of that kind of realm. And then schedule regular reviews and updates. Security is a journey, right? Being in a security mindset, it never stops. Bad guys get better at what they do. We have to continue to evolve, get better, iterate, make sure that we're making good progress for protecting ourselves in kind of this digital landscape. So one of the other things you can do is you can reach out to us or someone like us, an MSP, that help you kind of protect your people and your profits and make sure you're doing the right things. We can offer kind of a template of security policies that can be tweaked and managed and looked over and then implemented in your organizations. We can help you work on making sure that you and your staff are having a cyber first mindset. Make sure that you're, all of your kind of documentations in place so that when something does go wrong, you can reach out and deal with it quickly. We really believe that relationships matter and that we want to be your team of solutionists. So if you do have a need and do want our help, by all means, reach out to us, and that'll be coming up on one of the other slides. So we got some handouts that are available as part of this. Just all you have to do is email info@surinc.com. That will get you this handout. Just reference the 10 best security practices for mobile devices. We'll make sure that gets out to you. If you're watching this later, these handouts are available. Just again, email that info@surinc.com. So do we have any questions that have come in? I think one of the questions that we often get and we can kind of see come into these is, where do I start? And we tell pretty much everybody the same thing. Start with the really simple stuff. Just and do a little something every day. You don't have to be grandiose in everything that you do. Take 15 minutes and clear all the dead apps that you're not using, right? Take an hour and write down all the information on your cell phone and your tablet and your Kindle and make sure that's all in a safe place so that you know what you're using. Write down all the accounts that you sign into, right, that are on your phone. Simple things. These aren't difficult. They're not hard. They don't take that much time, but they have to get done, right? So just start doing that simple stuff. I think that's probably the biggest question that we run across when we talk about cybersecurity best practices. So where can you go from here? What can you do? So I think we've given you some concrete ways to look at being better at digital security on your mobile device. And you can do this yourself. The handout helps. We've covered a lot of some of the things you can do, but if you do get into a situation where that's a challenge, or maybe you don't have the time, right? DIY it takes your investment of your time to get that done, doing it yourself. Or find a partner, right? Find somebody that knows this stuff cold, knows how to work within your organization to make it better and more secure, and make sure that it's something, or it's a company that has that cyber security mindset, right? Thinks about cybersecurity first, not after everything's done. That is somebody like us, Strategic Information Resources, and we're always happy to help you with something like that. So what are some of the next steps? We often have our clients or prospective clients from these seminars reach out to us and book a strategy session. This strategy session is just a way for you to get to know us better, us to get to know you better, and to see if there's some kind of synergy between our organizations that would allow us to work together and help each other out. We help you by making sure your technology is up and running and is thought of in a security first mindset, and you get the peace of mind knowing that your solutions, your technology, your backups, you're better protected day in, day out. So you can book a session with us. I take most of these. We have a few other people in our organization that do as well, but we'd be happy to discuss this with you. You can reach out to us on that link that's in the presentation. And we want to thank you. Again, this is the link to book that strategy session, but we really appreciate you being here. We really appreciate you taking the time to watch. And if you do have questions or you're not sure where to go next, please feel free to email info@surinc.com. We will typically get back to you in 24 hours or less. I want to thank you for your time and really, really appreciate you being here and learning a little bit more about mobile security.